Welcome to the deep dive. Today we're really digging into the story of a genuine disruptor, Jeff Bezos.
Right. We've got this comprehensive biography here, and our goal isn't just to list facts.
Exactly. We want to get under the hood, understand the core drivers, the thinking that led him to build Amazon and, well, change so much about how we live.
Precisely. We're hunting for those patterns, the philosophies behind the decisions, from the early internet days right through to, well, shooting for the stars, literally.
Yeah.
This source gives us a lot to work with.
Okay, let's start at the beginning then. Albuquerque, New Mexico, January 12th, 1964.
And his mother, Jackie, she was only 17 when he was born. His biological father, Ted Jorgensen, owned a bike shop.
Yeah, and they separated pretty early on, didn't they?
They did. And then his mother married Miguel Bezos, who came from Cuba. He adopted Jeff when he was 4.
And that seems like a really pivotal moment. Miguel, an engineer, brought stability, a focus on education.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
You can see how that supportive environment, that focus, probably made a huge difference.
Yeah.
It speaks to resilience, too, adapting to those early changes. You see that adaptability later, right?
Totally. And even before that, there are these little flashes, like the story of him taking his crib apart with a screwdriver. He was only 3.
Yeah. Was it just mischief, or was it something more?
Well, the biography suggests it was about figuring things out, wasn't it? Wanting to see how stuff works.
Exactly. That innate curiosity, that analytical mind, even as a toddler. This sort of foreshadows his approach later on, that need to understand systems.
And that curiosity definitely fed into school. Math and science were his thing.
But not just theory, right? Those summers on his grandfather's ranch in Texas were huge.
Oh, yeah, Pop. He'd worked for a space agency, I think.
That's right. And the ranch taught him different lessons. Independence, practical problem solving, fixing windmills, dealing with animals. Real hands-on stuff.
Perseverance, too, I bet. Things go wrong on a ranch.
No doubt. So you get this blend, the academic mind and the practical can-do attitude. Seems pretty fundamental to his later success, navigating, the messy world of business.
And then in high school, it gets even clearer. He starts this summer camp, the Dream Institute, for younger kids.
Yeah, teaching science and literature. I mean, who does that as a teenager?
Right. It shows that drive, not just learning, but organizing, creating something, like a mini CEO already.
And a teacher noticed it, said he always had a plan, wanted to make his mark. The ambition was visible early on.
Plus, that fascination with space, it wasn't just a hobby.
No, it was deep. Reading sci-fi, thinking about space colonies. He even talked about it in his high school graduation speech.
About Earth's limits and needing to expand into space, that's a big vision for a teenager.
It really is. It wasn't just about business. It was almost philosophical. And choosing Princeton for electrical engineering and computer science fits right in. Technology was the key. He saw that.
You have to wonder how much that big space dream fueled everything else, his long-term thinking.
Definitely. At Princeton, the picture is serious, focused, intense. He really believed computers were going to change the world.
Was he like the #1 student?
Not necessarily, according to the source. He was smart, worked hard, sure. But what really stood out was the energy, the drive, that ambition.
People felt it, right? That feeling of Jeff Bezos was going somewhere.
Exactly. A sense of inevitability almost.
Okay, so Chapter 2 takes us from garage to genius. Princeton gave him the toolkit engineering, computer science, logic, building things.
Yeah, the foundation. And apparently, amidst all that focus, he had this huge laugh people remembered.
Huh? A bit of personality behind the intensity.
Right. And even then, he was talking about big, wild ideas. Space hotels, computers everywhere, things that sounded like science fiction back then.
But he was serious. It shows his thinking wasn't confined to the immediate reality.
Absolutely. And after graduating in '86, he doesn't go for the obvious big company job or Wall Street. He joins a small startup, Fidel.
Financial tech, right, building networks.
Yeah. That's a telling choice, isn't it? Choosing growth potential, being part of building something new over established security.
Even his later jobs, Bankers Trust, D.E. Shaw, they seem like steps, learning opportunities.
Definitely. He rose fast at D.E. Shaw, became one of their youngest VPs, so he could succeed in that world.
But he was restless.
Right. Because he saw something else happening. The internet explosion in the early 90s. That incredible growth rate, over 2,000% a year.
He saw the wave coming when others maybe just saw ripples.
And that led to the big idea, selling books online.
It seems so obvious now, but back then...
It was strategic. Books were perfect, easy to ship, massive catalog potential, way beyond any physical store. The idea of the world's biggest bookstore, accessible to anyone.
It wasn't just selling books, it was rethinking what a bookstore could be.
Exactly. He apparently made this list, 20 internet business ideas, and the bookstore kept coming out on top. Very analytical.
And then the conversation with his boss, David Shaw, weighing the safe path versus this crazy internet idea. That must have been tough.
Huge decision. But the turning point seems to be that walk in Central Park with his wife, Mackenzie.
The regret minimization framework in action.
Pretty much. I don't want to regret not trying this when I'm 80 years old. That was it. It wasn't just about potential upside. It was avoiding the downside of not trying.
That long-term perspective again. So 1994, they pack up, drive cross-country to Seattle, writing the business plan on the way.
That drive is such a powerful symbol of the shift. And the name, first, Cadabra.
Yeah, until someone misheard it as cadaver. Oops.
Huh. Good call changing it. Amazon evoking scale, the world's largest river. Much better fit for the vision.
And then the famous garage office in Seattle, doors for desks, the classic startup story.
Humble beginnings, but a huge vision brewing inside. And that bell they rigged up to ring with every sale.
Started slow, then faster and faster, the sound of disruption.
And Bezos was right in the thick of it, packing books himself, answering emails, coding, talking to customers, grueling hours, sometimes sleeping there.
Total immersion. He wasn't just directing, he was building it, brick by digital brick.
He got it.
Yeah.
He saw the internet wasn't just information. It was a store, a platform, a whole new way of doing business and really living.
So chapter 3, Wall Street to website, it really hammers home that jump. Age 30, top Wall Street job, chucks it for the wild west of the internet.
That drive across the country again, it's more than just moving house. It's a symbol of transformation.
And choosing Seattle made sense, didn't it? Tech hub, Microsoft nearby, talent pool.
Strategic choice. And that garage, maybe no heating, limited space, but fueled by this powerful dream. It shows passion can matter more than fancy offices sometimes.
The first website was pretty basic, right? Search, categories, shopping cart.
Functional,
Ugh.
but built on that core principle, customer obsession. That was there from day one.
Making it easy, providing information, reviews eventually.
Right. Features focused on the user experience. Getting funding wasn't easy, though. Lots of skepticism initially.
But he was persistent. Pitched his vision again and again. Eventually raised about $1 million from family, friends, some early believers.
Just enough to get going. And then, July 16th, 1995, Amazon.com goes live.
And the takeoff was faster than expected, wasn't it? Sales in all 50 states, 45 countries, just in the first month.
Incredible validation. That bell must have been ringing off the hook pretty quickly.
Which meant problems too, right? Scaling problems. Needed more computers, more people, more space, fast.
Exactly. And that's where his philosophy kicked in. Reinvest everything. Growth over profit. We are not in a sprint. We are in a marathon.
That became his mantra, and he stayed hands-on, involved in everything.
The media started noticing the bookstore of the future.
Which probably worried the traditional bookstores. And bigger companies were watching, maybe doubting it could last.
Lots of skepticism. But Bezos just kept hammering on customer value, and that day one idea started to emerge.
What exactly does day one mean again?
It's about always having the mindset of a hungry startup. Never get complacent. Always be innovating. Always focus on the customer. Act with urgency.
Got it. By the end of 96, 180,000 customers. Then the IPO in 97. Stock opens at $18.
He becomes a millionaire on paper. But apparently still drove a Honda, worked crazy hours.
The focus wasn't the money, it was the mission. Making Amazon the best place to shop online.
And he told investors straight up, expect us to take risks, to be misunderstood, to think long term. We're inventing here.
Already setting the stage for moving beyond books. Becoming the platform to change how the world buys.
Well, everything.
That vision was there early, so Chapter 4, Building Amazon from Scratch, really dives into making that everything store a reality. Books were just step one.
But growing that fast, the logistics must have been a nightmare. Managing all those customers, orders, the sheer complexity.
Absolutely. The focus had to shift to building really strong systems, pouring money into technology.
Hiring top engineers, making the site faster, smarter, easier to use. And Bezos himself remained obsessed with the details, with customer satisfaction. If something went wrong, he wanted to know why and fix it. Personally involved.
Then came the warehouses, the fulfillment centers. Chaos at first, apparently.
Yeah, scaling physical logistics is hard, but they figured it out. Barcode systems, better tracking, algorithms to manage inventory and orders. Tech solutions for physical problems.
All while facing pressure, right. Investors wanting profits, media questioning the model, competitors emerging.
Relentless pressure. But they pushed ahead. 1998, they expanded beyond books, music, DVDs, electronics.
Which brought new challenges, didn't it? Different shipping needs, returns policies.
Exactly. Each new category added complexity. But it also cemented the everything store idea. And they embraced the idea that some things would fail. Failure was part of innovating.
That famous quote comes in here. Your margin is my opportunity.
Right. Lower prices to win customers, build loyalty, gain market share. Thinking long term, not about maximizing profit on every single sale.
And introducing customer reviews. That was controversial at first, wasn't it? Publishers probably hated it.
Some did, yeah, showing negative reviews. But Bezos insisted it was good for the customer, built trust. And he was right. It became a standard feature everywhere.
Then personalization. You might also like. That was a big step.
Huge. Using data to make the experience better, help people discover things, made the site stickier.
Yeah.
By the end of 99, they had 17 million customers selling all sorts of stuff.
And Time Magazine's Person of the Year. King of online shopping. Quite a leap from the garage.
Massive leap.
Yeah.
But the internal mindset shift was key too. When they started saying, we are not a bookstore. We are a technology company that happens to sell books.
That reframing changes everything, doesn't it? Opens up possibilities like AWS later on.
Exactly. But they still weren't making big profits because they kept reinvesting. Critics were loud, predicting collapse.
Bezos just stayed laser-focused on the long game, though. Investing in infrastructure, software, people.
Believing that, if you are long-term oriented, customer interests and shareholder interests are aligned, eventually.
The leadership style sounds intense, high expectations.
Yeah, the quote about being pushed into a fast river, swim fast or drown, it suggests a demanding culture.
But maybe necessary for that kind of relentless innovation and growth, constantly changing, surprising people.
It's a complex picture. But the result was undeniable. From garage to global powerhouse, driven by vision, discipline, and that customer obsession.
Okay, Chapter 5. Risk, Failure, and Growth. Early 2000s. Amazon's a big name, but still financially precarious in some ways, right? Because of all that reinvestment.
Exactly. The costs of that rapid growth were huge. Profits were thin or non-existent. People were still asking, can this model actually survive? Bezos' expansion seemed reckless to some.
And then, bam, the dot-com bubble bursts in 2000.
Catastrophic for so many internet companies. Investor confidence evaporated. Stock prices crashed.
Amazon got hit hard too, didn't it? Stock down like 90%.
Brutal. Media called it Amazon.bomb. The narrative turned really negative. Survival was genuinely in question.
But Bezos' reaction, apparently quite calm.
Remarkably so. He basically said, this isn't the end. This will make us stronger. But how do you back that up?
Well, they had to cut costs. Layoffs, though maybe a small percentage, slowed hiring, put risky projects on hold. Practical steps.
Right. A focus on efficiency, streamlining the warehouses, improving shipping, getting better at customer service, tightening the belt.
But crucially, they didn't stop thinking about the future even then.
No, that's key. During that downturn, they started asking that game-changing question. What if our technology could help other businesses?
The seed of Amazon Web Services, AWS.
Exactly. Offering their own computing infrastructure servers, storage as a service to other companies.
Which must have seemed bizarre to outsiders. Amazon, the online store, getting into enterprise cloud computing?
Total skepticism from many. But Bezos saw cloud services becoming a fundamental utility, like electricity. Businesses would just plug in and pay for what they used. Incredible foresight.
AWS launched in 2006, and it just took off, didn't it? Became hugely profitable, the leader in the field.
Massively successful. It became the engine funding so much else at Amazon. A brilliant, counterintuitive bet made during a tough time.
And around the same time, they also launched Amazon Prime.
Right. Free 2-day shipping for a yearly fee. Seems simple, but it was revolutionary for customer loyalty. Speed and convenience locked people in.
Then the Kindle in 2007, another big bet, entering the e-reader market.
Doubters again. People love physical books. But the Kindle was a huge hit, completely changed the book industry again.
It fits his philosophy on failure, doesn't it? Failure and invention are inseparable twins. You have to take these swings.
Absolutely. You can't invent without potentially failing. He even points to the Fire phone later on 2014 as a big public failure.
But it framed it as a useful experiment.
Right. The culture was about making big bets. Some work, some don't. You learn and move on. The key is to keep experimenting.
That day one mentality again. Stay hungry, keep trying things.
And by the end of that decade, Amazon wasn't just a survivor of the dot-com crash. It was a transformed global powerhouse, thanks to that resilience, that willingness to take risks and innovate even under pressure.
Moving to Chapter 6, Thinking Long Term. This feels like the absolute bedrock principle for Bezos and Amazon.
It really is. The contrast with the typical short-term focus of public companies is stark.
His annual letters to shareholders always hammered this point, right? Prioritize long-term customer value over hitting quarterly profit targets.
He understood customers always want lower prices, faster delivery, more selection. So Amazon just kept investing relentlessly in those things, even if it hurt profits in the short run. It seemed counterintuitive to Wall Street.
Which led to that quote, "We are willing to be misunderstood for long periods of time."
That takes conviction. And it wasn't just strategy. It affected everything, even hiring.
Right, prioritizing people who bought into the long-term vision, who could handle the pace and think big, over just filling seats quickly.
I'd rather interview 50 people and not hire anyone than hire the wrong person fast.
That shows how critical he thought building the right team was for the long haul.
creating that high-performance, maybe demanding but inventive culture.
And specific mechanisms supported it. The two-pizza rule for meetings: keep teams small enough to be fed by two pizzas, forces focus, and fast action.
The regret minimization framework for big choices, like leaving D.E. Shaw.
And banning PowerPoint, making people write 6-page memos instead.
Why the memos?
To force deeper thinking, clarity, real narrative structure instead of bullet points. It slowed down the meeting start, but supposedly sped up the actual decision-making because everyone had truly engaged with the idea beforehand.
Interesting. All geared towards clarity and depth for better long-term results.
And it clearly worked. By the late 2000s, Amazon was dominant. Huge selection, global reach, Prime booming, AWS exploding.
And still launching new stuff constantly. Amazon Music Video, fresh. Always driven by that customer obsession. Remember his quote? "We don't make money when we sell things. We make money when we help customers make better decisions."
It's a different way of thinking about retail.
And he tell investors, "We don't work for Wall Street. We work for the customer." Bold stuff.
Then came Prime Day in 2015, creating their own shopping holiday.
Genius move. And continuing to build out that massive delivery network, more warehouses, testing drones, the Amazon Go stores with no checkouts, always pushing.
How did they keep coming up with ideas?
He said, "We are willing to plant seeds, let them grow, and be patient." Long-term thinking is like gardening, nurturing small ideas until they become big trees.
So Amazon evolved into this huge platform serving all sorts of needs.
Exactly. And Bezos remained this sort of quiet, future-focused leader, always sticking to day one. It's about that consistent, patient execution of a long-term vision.
Chapter 7, Beyond Books and Boxes, really explores how Amazon became just part of the fabric of life, not just a store anymore.
Totally. By the 2010s, it was a trusted name. Prime was huge. You could buy groceries, furniture, get food delivered. It was everywhere.
The vision expanded. Technology, logistics, media.
And AWS just kept growing like crazy, powering huge parts of the internet. Netflix, Airbnb, even NASA. That became the secret sauce, right? The profit engine.
Yeah, funding all the other bets, like Amazon Studios, making movies and TV shows, seemed like a big leap.
Competing directly with Hollywood.
Yep.
And then they win an Oscar for Manchester by the Sea in 2017. Nobody saw that coming.
But it wasn't just about winning awards, was it? It was about making Prime membership even more valuable, more sticky.
Exactly, adding value to the ecosystem.
Yeah.
Same with Alexa and the Echo speaker in 2014, voice assistant technology.
Another thing people were skeptical about at first, why do I need to talk to a speaker?
But it caught on massively, changed how people interact with tech at home, showed Bezos' knack for seeing where things were going.
Then the big move into the physical world. Buying Whole Foods in 2017, $13.7 billion.
Huge deal. Clearly about combining online tech with physical stores, trying to reshape grocery shopping, blurring the lines.
It all feels like this relentless drive to serve customers better, find new ways, one-click ordering, drones, cashierless stores.
Always experimenting. And learning from failures too, like the Fire phone. The biography notes that the Echo, a huge success, launched the same year the Fire phone flopped.
So failure didn't stop them from trying big things.
Not at all. They just kept expanding. Healthcare with Amazon Pharmacy, their own delivery planes and vans, more AI, fashion labels.
It became this vast ecosystem, didn't it? Shopping, entertainment, communication, cloud services, all integrated.
A true behemoth.
Yeah.
And Bezos himself was increasingly tuning his gaze towards that next big challenge, his oldest dream.
Space. Which brings us to Chapter 8, the space dream Blue Origin.
And this wasn't a new interest. The biography makes clear this goes way back to his childhood. Sci-fi, Star Trek, that whole vision.
He founded Blue Origin way back in 2000, right? 6 years after Amazon started.
Yeah, with that incredibly ambitious mission to build a future where millions of people can live and work in space.
And they operated in secret for years down in West Texas, just experimenting, learning.
Very Bezos-like. Patient, long-term, iterative. Even their logo, the feather, symbolizes flight, freedom. The vision was always safe, affordable, reusable space travel. Rockets that land themselves.
Which seemed pretty crazy back then. Space was for governments, mostly.
A lot of skepticism.
Yeah.
But Bezos had this rationale. We need to go to space to protect Earth, move heavy industry off planet, eventually build colonies. A grand vision.
So they worked quietly, testing small rockets.
Until 2015, that historic moment when they launched a rocket, the New Shepard booster, and landed it safely back on Earth, vertically.
That was a game changer for reusability.
Huge. Bezos said, we are now one step closer to a future where space is open to everyone. Understated, but profound.
And New Shepard was designed for space tourism, those short hops, to experience weightlessness and see the Earth.
Right. Years of testing followed, preparing for people.
Culminating in July 2021. Jeff Bezos, his brother Mark, Wally Funk, Oliver Damon, they went up.
That 11-minute flight, Bezos called it the best day ever.
Fulfilling that childhood dream. But he emphasized it was just the beginning for Blue Origin's real mission, right?
Exactly. Building the infrastructure for the future. They're working on bigger rockets, space stations, even a lunar lander for NASA's Artemis program.
It's interesting comparing his approach to Elon Musk's with SpaceX. Different focus, maybe. Mars versus infrastructure.
Seems that way, at least initially. Bezos talks about needing the roads before you can have the towns, building the foundation. He believes millions will live and work in space eventually. Big things start small.
And he poured his own money into it, calls it the most important work I'm doing.
Which makes sense why, after stepping down as Amazon CEO in 2021, he focused more on Blue Origin. It's the culmination of that lifelong dream, pursued with that same intensity.
So Chapter 9 looks at leadership, lessons, and legacy. Stepping down as CEO in 2021, his impact is just immense, isn't it? More than just a company.
Absolutely reshaped modern life, his leadership style. The word that comes up again and again is intense.
Demanding, high expectations, always asking why. Is this helping the customer?
Right. Some employees described working there like surviving a jungle. High pressure, definitely.
But he had frameworks, like differentiating type 1 and type 2 decisions.
Yeah. Type 1, big, irreversible, needs slow, careful thought. Type 2, small, reversible, act fast, you can always correct course. Don't get bogged down on type 2 decisions.
And that core principle, invent and simplify.
You see it everywhere. Improving the store, AWS, Alexa, one click. Always trying to make things better, simpler for the customer, even if the tech behind it is complex.
The flywheel concept, too.
Yeah.
That self-reinforcing loop.
Lower prices bring customers bring sellers. More sellers mean better selection, which brings more customers. And it allows for lower prices. It feeds itself. Brilliant strategic concept.
All built on that customer obsession. Prime, fast delivery, reviews, easy returns.
Everything circled back to the customer. When he stepped down as CEO, appointing Andy Jassy, and became executive chairman, it wasn't retirement.
No, it was shifting focus. Blue Origin, the Washington Post, which he also owns.
And his philanthropy. The Bezos Earth Fund for Climate Change, the Day One Fund for Homelessness in Preschools. Significant commitments there.
His legacy isn't just wealth, it's the sheer reach and influence.
Commerce, tech, reading, cloud, space. He's changed the game in so many areas, influenced countless entrepreneurs with his principles.
Though the biography acknowledges the criticisms too, right? About the work culture, treatment of workers, market power.
Important to include that. It's a complex legacy, not without controversy, but undeniably transformative.
Fits with his quote, "If you want to be understood all the time, don't do anything new. Innovation often brings friction."
True. Building Amazon, launching rockets, it took relentless drive, long-term vision, and courage.
And that "it's still day one" mantra suggests the story isn't over, an ongoing journey.
Definitely. Which leads nicely into the final chapter, chapter 10. Quotes, reflections, and final thoughts. Kind of distilling the essence.
Right. Let's hit a few key quotes. "Your brand is what other people say about you when you're not in the room."
Nails the importance of trust, reputation, customer experience. It's not just marketing, it's the reality you build.
"We are stubborn on vision. We are flexible on details."
Crucial balance. Know your destination, but be ready to adjust the route based on what you learn. Adaptability within a strong framework.
"If you double the number of experiments you do per year, you're going to double your inventiveness."
Just emphasizes that relentless experimentation. Innovation is a numbers game, partly. You need lots of tries. Velocity matters.
And tied to that, it's not an experiment if you know it's going to work.
Right. True innovation involves uncertainty, risk. You have to be willing to try things that might fail. Otherwise, you're just optimizing, not inventing.
That hiring quote again. "I'd rather interview 50 people and not hire anyone than hire the wrong person."
Shows how vital the team is. Getting the right people aligned with the values and the mission is paramount for long-term success.
I believe you have to be willing to be misunderstood if you're going to innovate.
So true. Big ideas often seem crazy at first. You need conviction to push through that initial skepticism. And maybe my favorite. What's dangerous is not to evolve.
Powerful. Standing still is falling behind. Constant adaptation, learning, growing, that's essential for survival and success.
The reflections paint him as complex, admired for his drive, criticized for the culture, effective, maybe not always popular.
Encouraged big thinking, risk-taking, and going to space really embodies that forward-looking mindset.
The final thoughts frame him as someone who fundamentally changed things by focusing on solving problems, improving customer lives through innovation and bold moves.
So the key takeaways: think big, think long-term, obsess over the customer, experiment constantly, build a great team, never stop evolving.
A pretty powerful set of principles, applicable well beyond just business. His influence is undeniable.
So wrapping up this deep dive, for you, the learner, those principles really stand out, don't they? That long-term vision, customer focus, embracing experimentation, the power of big dreams.
Yeah, and the biography makes it clear. Achieving that kind of impact often means being willing to be misunderstood for a while. Patience and conviction are key.
Which leads to a final thought for you to consider. Reflecting on that day one mentality Bezos talks about, where in your own life, your own learning, are you most excited about the possibilities right now? What unexplored territory feels like day one for you?
And maybe think about how you could apply some of those principles long-term thinking, focusing on who you're trying to serve or what problem you're trying to solve to your own goals.
Lots to chew on there. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive.